Welcome, everybody, to the Jim Masters Show, entertainment, lifestyle, celebrity talk show series. Hope you guys are doing well. It is a beautiful day here. It is around 90 degrees, and it is only mid-April at the time of this show because we do our shows live. So there is a timestamp on some of them. Hey, how's everybody doing today? Hope you're doing well. We've got an extraordinary guest coming in from New York City. Yes. So wherever you're watching around the world, stay with us. You're going to have an incredible time, I'm sure, because we're going to really get engaged. Conversations, one of our lifestyle segments of our entertainment lifestyle celebrity talk show series, as we welcome renowned stylist, author. Matter of fact, we were just talking shop a little bit. She also worked with WGN, Channel 9 News in Chicago, and the Chicago Tribune newspaper, legendary newspaper. She was an on-air personality with them as well. And she's joining us. Yes, Barri Leiner Grant is here, stylist, author, founder of something called the Memory Circle. We're going to talk about that. It's something very, very special. It is a creation of hers as a stylist, market editor, and also self-proclaimed vintage junkie. Barri has an artful eye and clever hand for the unexpected. Now, for nearly 2 decades, she has established herself in the editorial and commercial markets, prepping, propping, and conceptualizing everything from well-curated trend stories to memorable interior design shoots. She's often tapped by leading architects, photographers, interior designers to help personalize their design work. Clients such as SC Johnson and the Limited Incorporated, Huggies, and even Crate and Barrel have called on her trend spotting expertise, wherein she translates product into well-curated concepts, including Pinterest boards, promotional concepts, color forecasts, catalog layouts. She serves as a contributor to CS Interiors, Chicago Magazine, Michigan Avenue Magazine, Country Living Magazine, and so much more. But she also is a certified grief coach and educator. That's right. And she absolutely loves what she does. She is actually this is terrific. I love this title, Chief Grief Officer, as well as certified grief coach and educator. And she helps people deal with healing through loss, healing through grief, losses of any kind. You know, we've been talking a lot here on the Jim Masters Show about the last few years and all of the interesting things that we've experienced in our lives, individually and collectively. There's been a lot of loss lately for a lot of people with, the pandemic and everything. So, she's been helping people through for many, many years. And we're going to talk about the memory circle and the importance of it and what it's all about. I don't want to give it all away because I want Barri to really describe it for us. But this is going to be a very important, fascinating, eye-opening, inspiring conversation as, again, she joins us from New York City. We welcome you and whatever you're going through in your life, good, bad, and ugly, or indifferent, stick with us. You're going to find some useful ways to, enjoy your life's purpose, enjoy your true journey. If you're trying to inspire others or just get through the day, which many of us try to do as well, Barri's here to help. And she's an expert here on the Jim Masters Show live series. And I'm so excited to have her here. So we welcome you. If you'd like to comment during the show, and I see many of you looking at the JMS Levity Hall chat room there, many of you are already busy typing away. If you'd like to comment during the show while the show is airing, right now live, you can do that by subscribing to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. That is the channel right now where this broadcast happens and where all of the episodes are archived as well. So you can subscribe, doesn't cost anything. And when you do, you know what happens when you do? You get to comment right here and right now during the show. You're also part of the Levity family. And that's something special. And that is something very, very cool. So if this is your first time here, or you've been with us for well over 900 plus shows and counting, good to have you with us. Hope your day's going well. And I hope, life's treating you well. So we're going to welcome her to the show. Again, coming to us from New York City. We have so many cool things to talk about and to show you. And thanks for, again, spending some time with us here on the show. It means a great deal to me and us here at the show that you spend the time. There's a lot of choices out there, a lot of options, a lot of things to do Whether you watch live or you watch Memorex, you watch this show, this series later. It's so great to have you here. It's so great to have Barri here as well. Barri, welcome to the Gym Masters Show. I love having you here. Welcome.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Lovety clan. I said I'm going to change my name to Barri Leiner Lovety.
I love that.
I do too. Sounds good.
I tell you, it just happened to be one of those things. Like I said a gazillion times on the show, I said it accidentally when I said light, love, and levity, slipped out of my mouth. Ever the New Yorker saying something quick and fast and shortened, and that's what that's what came. And people said, you keep saying it was a mistake. It was a Freudian slip of sorts. It was meant to be, I guess. I was supposed to say that because the show has that sort of that vibe, and you are definitely a love it, and you're part of it as well. And how's your day going? How's things going for you now, Barri?
Good.
Yeah.
I'm recently moved back east. I'm originally from the area, and I was many, many years in Chicago. And in September, we returned home. So it feels good to be back in my roots. I loved being in Chicago and did a lot of great things while I was there, as you shared. Working for the Chicago Tribune and many publications there and companies that are Chicago based, like Crate and Barrel, things that many, many people know. But when the pandemic hit and we were still there, I felt called to take what was just more peer led work and formalize it to become a certified grief coach, and felt like the pandemic had a lot of people experiencing what I call re-grief, like things coming up for them because we were solo and we were not able to connect and we were not near loved ones, and some loved ones we were finding were sick, created worry. And now in this semi-post pandemic world, I feel like we're on the heels of almost a grief pandemic, where we're not sure what to name
Yes.
feelings that we have about what we've all collectively been through, whether it's a loss of a person or a loss of connection. But we need to, I think, give grief a better place to live in modern day society. And I thank you for being brave enough to have me on to talk about a really difficult subject.
It is. And as I mentioned, during the course of the last couple of years, there's been a lot of grief, and some of it has been visibly expressed in many public ways and seen, in the media. And there's so many extraordinary stories. When dealing with grief, a lot of times people try to put a time stamp on it. You'll have somebody say, okay, it's been 6 months since your so-and-so passed. Shouldn't you be past that?
Right.
That's not good advice.
No, there's no over it. Someone said, how long will it take me to grieve? Well, how long did you love that person? And and there really is no time frame. I think we're very hooked into, especially in the States, I think we're very hooked into getting something finished, right? Getting from point A to point B. The stages of grief, which were really created for those who had experienced illness, I think we adapted and adopted so that we could sort of tick a box and say, okay, well, now I'm in acceptance, and now I'm in denial, and now I'm in, and kind of like check, 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 and now I'm done. The truth is that you will experience different phases and feelings and what I call re-grief when something else comes up, like the pandemic. If you have not grieved, if you have not processed what you've been through, it will come and visit you somatically. Like
Comes back.
we say the body keeps the score, right? So you may not realize it, but even a warm day like today, like this weather that we're experiencing, sometimes your body will feel a certain way and you won't even remember, oh yes, this is the time of year that XYZ happened, or we lost mom, or we lost our puppy, or there's just something that you are feeling but you can't name. And so I think we learn to live with loss. I don't think we get over it. I think we generally learn to live with it. So it's something that I create tools for people who come to see me so that they can indeed hold them both in one hand. We can hold joy and how we're going to move forward in our life, and the other is to reflect and remember and accept that we're also in grief. But that doesn't mean we are always in a ball of tears. That can mean that we are in a more accepting phase. It can be a way that we reframe or honor the loss. And there's all different ways. Like I said, it's like a toolkit. It's a toolkit like we would have for anything else that we're going through or experiencing. It's just that we don't talk about it a lot. So sometimes someone says, oh, everybody experiences grief differently and everybody processes differently. And that almost creates a little bit of mystery around, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Is there one way? Is there a right way? Because it makes it sound very ominous. So
Does.
even I lost my mom, Ellen, in 1993, and she died quite suddenly and unexpectedly of a brain aneurysm. She was 50, went to the beach, and sadly passed away in a beach chair.
Sorry to hear that. I lost a cousin that way at 42.
Really.
Aneurysm. Yeah. Yeah.
And, with a sudden loss, you can also experience a lot of traumatic.
They're tough, aren't they?
Yeah, in a sudden loss, because you don't have the opportunity for any goodbye or any pre-grief, I would say, any
Did you
processing.
did you find that with ones that we've had with relatives over the years and friends, our sister and I have had this conversation. Not only do we feel the loss, of the person for us, whoever the person may be, we also feel so bad for them that they
Mhm.
didn't get to summarize their life. They didn't get a chance to go up on a mountain and say those final words. It's almost as if the grief and loss and sadness for our loss is matched with the loss that, or the understanding that they didn't get a chance
Right.
to
The
dot
future
the
you
I and
imagine.
cross the T.
Yes, the future you imagine, not just for you and your relationship with that person, but the future that you imagine, that's an out of order loss, right? We imagine that person is going to grow old. So at 42, so young, at 50, so young, you imagine that rest of their life, right? And
You
what
feel
they
bad
may
for
have
them,
been
right?
accomplished, right? So that's another thing, that we don't think about, the way in which we grieve, not just for what we've experienced, but maybe the future we imagined.
Yeah, all those things that happen, those holidays and
Right.
births and other accomplishments and things in life, or you might even have like a breaking news story that a major worldwide event,
Yeah.
something like a 9/11,
Right.
where people that may have passed just before that, and you can't discuss any of it with them
Right.
because they're
Right.
not here.
Right. I
Uh,
always say, like, that longing to pick up the telephone and tell them
and
something.
say, could you
30 years
believe
later,
this? Yeah.
yeah, 30 years later, Jim, it still happens to me with my mom. Something I think, oh, she'd love this, or if I could call her or just share this with her. And so
Do you feel her with you?
I do. I mean, signs abound. That's one thing that, people say, well, where do our loved ones go? And I say, what brings you peace? What do you
Yeah.
believe? And so for my family, we have seen a ladybug since
Mhm.
almost since the day that my mom passed away. We've seen that's one of our signs that we see. People report all kinds of things. They report finding change, pennies, nickels, dimes, heads up, heads down, very specific. Hearts, they'll see hearts everywhere.
Mm,
Numbers on a clock. Uh,
music,
Repeated
songs,
numbers, songs coming on
perfume.
in the middle of a store. Yes, go. I say, like, go smells. Like sometimes, grandpa's cigar you'll smell out of nowhere, and you'll just think
Yes.
that's so crazy.
Food, certain foods too.
Yes,
Mm,
yes. It's to me, that's very comforting. To
yeah.
others, it may be a little frightening. It has to be something that our loved ones don't want to frighten us. So if you believe that there's, spirit, or you believe in these signs and synchronicities, and you haven't had one yet, ask for one. Ask for one.
What about if you're somebody who, not that you like to talk about the person that passed necessarily, but you want to celebrate them, you want to talk about them, you want to remember, you want to bring them up, and the person around you or people around you can't or won't. Well, I
Mm,
can't go there because if I go there, I'll go off the deep end. I have to not, I cannot. So if you're surrounded by people who just won't discuss this person that was part of the vernacular and has now
Everybody,
disappeared.
yes, and everyone in a family will grieve differently. So I would say if you are the one that wishes to bring them up and it is met with some resistance, let them know that that brings you comfort. For some, that's going to cooking their food that they used to cook for you. For others, that's going to a graveside. For me, it's say their name, say their name, say their name. I think one of the most intimate and supportive things that you can do is actually ask, tell me a story.
Yeah.
Tell me a story about your mom. Tell me something
Yes.
about them. Ask. So if some people won't ask because they think, oh, well, Jim will fall apart if I ask about his mother, father, brother, whomever. I don't forget that I've lost a loved one. Believe me, you're not going to make them sad. You're probably going to invite a conversation that they've been longing to have
Right.
for forever. So I think ask. It's a gift. It's really a gift. Tell me a story about them and say their name. I used to say my mom died, and now I say my mom Ellen, because I want someone to say, and 9 out of 10 times somebody will say to me, oh, I had an aunt Ellen. Like we'll start to have even a conversation about her name. She becomes a person.
That's right.
Not a mom, my mom, Ellen. So I say, ask their name, say their name. It's a great tool.
So tell us a story about Ellen.
She was a woman before her time. I used to say she's like thoroughly modern Millie. When she and my dad divorced, and it was peaceful and as amicable as it could be, and they remained great friends, my mother and her best friend got the real estate license together. And I believe they created job share. Truly, it was, in the early 90s, and they went to a real estate firm and said, we just need one desk, one business card. We'll put both our names on it. We'll share time. All the kids would go home to one person's home after school, and the other would take the office hours. And they were called the dynamic duo by our local paper. They created what I believe to be job share. There were these modern women who needed to find work and have insurance and their own income and independence. And that's how they forged ahead. And my mom became a very well-known realtor, multiple homes to different families. They all came to our school system. So we had to be nice to all the people that moved in. We knew them all personally, all the children of all the people whose homes she sold. She was a dynamic realtor. And then she started a charity in town. She'd have these amazing events at the Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, New Jersey. She would fundraise for a homeless shelter in our area and a women and children's center for people who needed help and housing when they were going through a difficult time, a safe place to be. And she just said, how can we sell these multi-million-dollar homes and not give back to the community? And so, yeah, it was pretty dynamic and modern. And our kitchen table was a pretty exciting place to be because she was very bold and straightforward about telling all the kids kind of like the truth about things that I think parents didn't really talk about at other kitchen tables.
They gave you sage advice. You were given sage advice early on. I got that too. Yeah, my folks, especially my dad from New York City, passed down a lot of good. It still does some wonderful sage advice that has at 7, 8 years, 9 years old about life, about living, about people, about forging ahead, which was really interesting. And because I call upon it all the time now, I still do. One of them, and I'll share it again. I know this audience who watches all the time, they've heard it a million times, but I say it every once in a while. It's one of my favorite lines that he says and said early on. And we have the same name. We're all James. I'm like the fifth James. Whenever anybody says something kind or nice to you, Jim, ask them to please put it in writing and address it management.
That's so good. That's so good. And I see I'm gleaning just some of the comments in the box, and because we've brought up loss, it's full of people honoring loved
Who've
ones lost,
expressed loss in their
expressing,
lives.
yes, a mom gone 2.5 years. Kathleen, tell me her name. That's what I would say. Tell me her name. And
And
somebody said,
Kathleen's in New York City. Yeah.
yeah, and someone says my aunt, and someone's ill. And it's like, we need to craft and create community around loss, because it's happened to everyone, or it will. Nobody, no, this escapes no one, right? We are all going to have to deal with death and dying at some time in our lives. And so I feel like changing the vernacular and the comfort around bringing it up just as we would a birthday is so important, because I'm just looking at this chat and it's filled with all,
Levity.
yes, with the levities telling us. And, it doesn't have to be dramatically sad. It can be sometimes, but this is just an honoring of loved ones lost, and how lovely, right? I want to know all
Mhm.
of their names. I want to know stories about them. And I want to know that the 360-degree self that you are is somebody who has experienced a loss. If we can't bring that to work, if we can't bring that to, like you said, an experience, a day-to-day experience, when then? When then? Then we have it on the inside, and we will physically make ourselves ill by not moving that grief through us.
What was it about this work that sort of spoke to you and inspired you? What was it about helping people deal with and heal from, be educated about grief? And how early on in your life did you decide to take this on? Or do
Mm,
you think it was something that was always inside you if you look back, even as a kid?
I don't think I was ever truly afraid to bring up the topic. I think mostly because my mom was pretty open about things in general. I think she gave us permission to talk about the comfortable and the uncomfortable. But it really was because I had no resources of my own in 1993. People did not say grief, grieving. There was no offer of any therapy. I realized when someone else experienced a loss, and I had some physical reaction that I had not processed. When I became a mom, I realized that more was coming. I got that mother daughter connection back with the birth of my daughter Emma, and then sister with my second daughter, Quinn. What began to happen is I experienced what I would call regrief, what I name regrief, that these things would come up for me, and I didn't realize that they were indeed grief. And so I just thought, this needs to live in a better place. And I started to just become curious and became what I would call more of a peer guide. I would just meet the motherless daughter online at the supermarket or something. And, they'd pass like the tomato soup, paying for the soup when you're going by. And I would notice that the woman would say, "Oh, my mom loved," I'd hear past tense, "My mom loved." And I would say, "Oh, is she living?" I just started to have all these conversations, and I realized there was something very, people were very attracted to talking to me about mother loss in general. And I thought, well, if this isn't the universe tapping me on the shoulder and saying, like, this is your life's work, this is your life's work. But I was very hesitant in defining myself in any way by my loss, because I thought it would really make my mom sad. She knew I was a reporter. She knew I had a public relations firm. She knew all of the quote unquote sexy things that I had done in my career. And I just thought that would honor her. But in any way that I would define myself by my loss, I thought would be really disappointing to her. There she is. She loved that beach. And so I never really leaned into the work until I formally began training. And it just felt so right, and I thought to myself, even if I help one person by formalizing this, and then the circle grew and grew to, especially when Zoom became a very regular place for us to meet during the pandemic, all of us that were separated and couldn't come to live events, we gathered on Zoom. I say, by the campfire that was Zoom, the campfire light that was Zoom. I created a community that was more people than we could have ever fit in a gathering in person, and realized that there were so many people that wanted to tell their story and wanted to talk about what they were feeling, especially during the pandemic. I think it brought up a lot of grief for many of us who had not processed what we had been through. And it was easier for them to name in that moment because it was such a worldwide experience.
On so many different levels, and it sort of reminded us perhaps of the losses that we all have that we deal with in our lives, because it is such a monumental communal experience to see the grief, see the loss, kind of like with 9/11 as well. And I remember my sister and I were very moved when we saw folks in, especially in New York, in the city, walking around with photos of their
Mhm.
loved one, holding it up, saying to random people, "This is my mother, this is my brother, this is my wife,
Yes.
my daughter, my aunt, my grandfather. Have you seen them? Have you seen them?"
Remember.
We were so like in tune with that, and we felt their loss. Both of us talked about it. We really felt and connected with what they were feeling. There wasn't anything we can necessarily do on the scene then, but because we weren't in that particular on that street or whatever, but still, we it resonated
Yeah, we're
on an
empathic.
incredible level.
We're empathic beings. We are. We're empathic beings. If we've experienced something, we can match that experience with someone else. It may not be identical because really, no two of us are, but we may empathize, right? And
Yeah.
so allowing for them, asking them to tell us about their person, right? How beautiful to keep their memory alive. I always say the word remember is remembering us, putting ourselves back together. And so the memories of the people help us renew, help us to move forward, help us to live forward, um, in their memory, but with them, like we bring their, like you said, we bring that life that is no longer lived forward. So I incorporate my mom into all sorts of traditions, new ways. My mom was also an Olympic discount shopper. So we always
I like
buy,
that
yeah,
Olympic discount shop.
Olympic. So my sister and I decided that instead of, being, oh, mom would have been this age or this age on this year, we celebrate her by going and buying something at discount and then exchanging what it is that we do on that day in her honor. And I call it reframing. So what could we do to reframe the day? If Mother's Day is going to be a disaster because you are experiencing infertility, you have had a miscarriage, you are no longer with a mom, but you are in fact a mom, what could you do on that Saturday that's sort of like taking back the day before that Sunday comes and makes you feel like it's overwhelming? So that
Yeah.
reframe of the birthday, that reframe of a holiday, when we know that time of year is coming around for the anniversary of a loss, what can we do to honor that day for ourselves and the loved one?
So, what about somebody who um, they're stuck? They can't get beyond the loss of that particular individual.
Mm,
Whether it's a child or a spouse, a friend, some it's even their pet. It's the dog or the cat they were very close to for
yes,
20 years, and they just can't. Nothing else matters. Life is now stopped. The world has stopped.
yes,
That's that. And then somebody else passes and that gets added. And then
yes,
another and that gets added. And then you turn on the news and you see the world looks like it's ending and that gets added. And it
yes.
all of a sudden becomes this monumental, overwhelming situation, which a lot of people are feeling. I think all of
Yes.
us probably have felt elements of it in our lives. How do you work through that kind of a thing where you still can't fathom that these people or that person is gone?
Right, right. I think one of the most supportive things that you can do for yourself is seek a grief support group. I mean, I'm all about people joining, seeing a therapist. But I think there is that empathy that you were just talking about, seeing something in someone else's story, being a listener of someone else's story, some kind of a connection, I think can be incredibly healing. I think there is this wisdom exchange that takes place when we um, connect in that way in a grief support group. And you don't feel as if your feelings are meant to be hidden. You can show up exactly as you are. It doesn't matter if you're, still crying 1 year later. But the thing, when you said stuck, sticky is what we don't want to be. We don't really want to get stuck. We want to find movement. So whether that is finding tools like meditation, exercise, um, writing, journaling is an exceptional way. Writing letters to your loved one is a beautiful way of connecting. The cells in our body don't know whether the person is earthly or otherwise. So sometimes when we write to them, we can make that cellular connection that makes us have some kind of, I wouldn't say closure, but I would say some kind of a connection, a continued relationship, so that we can craft something that feels good in our body somatically. We may not understand it. Our brain wants to find the person. That's our job when we lose someone. We're in this state of looking for them. That's really what the brain does. And so it
Yeah.
feels very unnatural, right? We're looking and we're looking, and that is hard for our body to understand that they're not to be found, right? It's a very hard thing because we want to care for our people, right? So what we have to do is craft a connection to them that feels, good to you. Some people say to me, "Oh, I'm not a writer," and the minute I offer prompts in a group setting, they are writing things that they never even imagined that they would be writing. Things are coming up in their journals that they never imagined um, they could even speak. So it's a different way of moving. So sometimes words don't come, but they will on paper, and that is an unbelievable way of, like I said, we just have to find ways of moving the grief. That is the number one thing. That sticky is what we try to avoid.
It's are you playing a sound effect record behind you to sort of
That is like New York
heighten the
City.
mood
Yeah,
of the conversation? I mean, it's like here we are trying to have
you
no
can't make it up.
reminders
I
of the
know.
craziness
My
of
nephew,
life.
my nephew used to say, "Someone needs help," whenever he would hear.
Actually, I think that way too, and I have as a kid. Whenever I hear a fire engine or an ambulance or
Mhm.
a police car or whatever, I'm always thinking they're on their way to something where somebody's life is changing right now. Something is happening, and you have to learn to also. I always ask doctors, nurses, firefighters,
Mm.
EMTs, folks who are experienced, psychologists, folks who are doing work where they're hearing not necessarily the pretty of life all the time,
Mm.
and how they deal with it as experts in those areas, how
Yeah.
they process it. How do you deal with constant emergency room, surgical patients coming in
Yeah.
every single day? How do you get in that fire truck and rush to another
Yeah.
fire where there might be a baby trapped in the upstairs room? How the heck do you do that constantly? And I'm always asking, and they say,
Yeah.
well, a lot of them have this similar answers. They'll say, I'm not numb to it. We
Right.
just realize that it's part of what we do, it's part of who we are, and we're here to serve, and we're here to hopefully provide a service that saves and helps
Mm.
people.
Yeah.
So as opposed to looking at it from just the something tragic is happening, it's more of we're going to try to do whatever we can to save the situation.
Absolutely. And also they have tools where they can release um, what they're what they're feeling. I mean, a lot of burnout in the emergency front line. That was a lot of the work that I did during COVID, also helping them create practices for themselves so that they could process all of the grief that they were experiencing, but then going on to the next and the next and the next, never stopping to really care for themselves.
Your light's getting a little
I
dark
know.
there.
I want
Is
to move
there
over.
a
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, she just turns around and look what happens.
there you go.
There she is. Well,
There
just
she is.
wow,
There
if
she
I
is.
now that's what you call a swivel.
A swivel.
That is
I
a
couldn't
show.
believe it. I couldn't believe it. That was the best light in the place. So
Did you see that it was started like the
yeah,
sun was
it
going
was happening.
down?
It was
And
happening.
and eventually talking about disappearing, you were gonna disappear before our eyes.
Sundown. So I forgot about sundown happening during the show.
Right, exactly, yeah, because it is about, our time, your time as well here on the East Coast, 7:40, so the sun isn't it nice the sun isn't going down till 7:40
Such a
right
treat.
now? That's nice, it's all the day is all in how you look at it. How did you come up with the memory circle? Tell us about that.
It's a crazy story. I was to be a guest on a podcast, and there was an intake form. And at the very bottom of the form, it said, "Is there anything else you wish us to promote?" And out of my fingers came the memory circle. I had never searched it, I had never spoken it aloud. I feel very much that I'm a memory maker. I feel like that's always been important to me in my styling, in public relations, that there's always like a story that we're telling, the story of who lives in the homes that we photograph, the story of memories made by engraving a piece of jewelry. I don't know. It just literally came out of my fingers, and I quick did a search online to see if it was available, and the .com was available. And by the time um, I was on the podcast, I had already had my first in-person event, and the circle was born. So there was something about the idea of sitting shoulder to shoulder with others who had experienced loss. Um, that was the whole idea. And I saw a circle as a place where we could do that. And it was just about, there was something about sitting shoulder to shoulder with others who had experienced the same thing as you had, but we had never connected before.
So how does it work? Or is it done online or people meeting in person? How do you
I've done
create that
both.
circle?
Yeah, I've done
You're
both.
doing both, right?
I've done both. So in person now, the circle has moved in person along with me from Chicago to New York, but I still travel, and it's at local libraries. It's hosted at yoga studios. It's hosted in anywhere where where people can gather, and also I have it at different spaces so that where you feel comfortable is where you show up. I find different crowds in different places, and via Zoom at thememorycircle.com, we do monthly events. I do writing groups, and so it's always different, and it's ever evolving. And now in New York, live in-person events are back, and so a lot of those are upcoming. I have one at the Katona Library coming on Monday evening. It's called Writing Through Grief, and it's free. It's donor sponsored, so some of the events are even free, which is very important to me. Some are scholarship funded, which is lovely. So some people will honor a loved one lost by donating to the circle, so that somebody who needs support can come, and they'll honor a loved one lost by supporting somebody else in grief group.
That's fantastic. That really is. I mean, we need things like that, right? To come together and to celebrate life and living and honor and remember those who are no longer with us physically, but they are in spirit.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's um it's it's evolving as well. I think that when we're becoming more and more in need of connection, especially when we realized how disconnected we felt during the pandemic, that there are even people that say, I feel like I'm grieving the loss of normalcy, and people always
Yeah.
say, I lost my pet. Can I come? I haven't been with people in a long time. I feel very disconnected. Can I come? They need permission to name whatever it is that they're going through, a grief of some sort.
Do you feel like things are different since the pandemic started?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially for children that couldn't gather
Yeah,
and go to school.
yeah.
There was a lot of loss I felt around that. And it was not only around my children, just like that normalcy of that connection that you get, or the teacher seeing their kids in the class, the one child that might be a little slumped. That just that feeling, I'm trying to get better and in my light. Just that feeling that they didn't get to have that normal school, graduations in person and sitting next to your buddy and having lunch. I don't know. There was something about school, about the children being separated at school. Um, they just need that socially. And that made me, I think, the most sad.
Define chief grief officer. I love that.
Well, there's like, I'm the CGO. There's like the, chief marketing officer and the chief this officer and the CEO. And I just thought, you know what? I looked to see if anybody had it. Someone said, "Are you the founder of the Memory Circle?" And I said, "I'm the chief grief officer. I'm like, I answer the phones. I'm in charge of social. Like, I do it all." And it was kind of a joke. And then someone said, "Oh, you should look and see if there's a trademark available." And there was. So it's my official trademark, if you will. But I feel like if not me, then who? Right? If
Right.
I'm not changing the conversation around this, if I'm not having these kinds of conversations, if I'm not educating others, sometimes I go into companies and help them become more grief literate, help them with their bereavement leave policy. If you're on tonight and you work for a company and you don't know whether they have a bereavement policy, if somebody in your family were to pass, how many days do you get off? Can you attend the funeral? A
Right.
query to ask. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Because sometimes you don't find that out until it happens, and then you're scrambling. You're disappointed you get 2 days, and then they
Yeah.
want you back. Yeah.
Right. Or you have to take vacation days or whatever. I think that we're really hoping that bereavement leave for all is something that we'll have from, from the government. There's only a few states that have bereavement leave as part of a statewide plan. But I am hoping that, in the United States, we'll have universal bereavement leave for all.
There's a few universal things that we need in America that do exist elsewhere.
Yes,
A couple of
very
things
true.
here,
Very
there,
true.
and everywhere. Um, how do you balance it if you're dealing with helping others, inspiring, lifting others, helping them heal, showing them you're a
Mhm.
facilitator, a conduit of the energy, and giving them, you're not holding their hand per se, you're giving them the tools they need so they can lift up
Yeah.
and stay lifted. How do you balance it? What do you do? Because obviously, even hearing other people's stories yourself, you can't be surrounded by grief
That's
24
so
7. So, what
that's
does
so
Barry
kind.
do to balance it?
Barry does a whole lot of yoga, a whole lot of yoga. I'm a certified yoga instructor, and I find that returning to my mat, that's my movement. I feel like the minute I put my feet on the mat, it's more magic carpet than anything else. Very transported by doing yoga. I have a meditation practice. And I do a lot of treat myself to some body work. I find I'll show up for a massage and acupuncture, and they'll say, what do you need? And sometimes what happens is I end up wearing grief that is not my own. So I do a lot of clearing exercises that are expressly for that. So thanks for asking. But yes, just like I was saying, the frontline workers, I'll often work with them so that they have some release exercises so that you're not wearing it. Because again, that can show up in your body and create some physical dis-ease, if you will.
And that's the thing, yeah, dis-ease, right? Your body is not happy at that point, and it's all connected, mind, body, and spirit. You're also an author. Tell us about that.
Oh, I had a lot of more lifestyle books. Everybody says, "When's your grief book coming? When's your grief book coming?" So I I don't know that I feel called to write about a how-to about grief. I write a lot about my mother, and I write to my mother, and I've started to share that in recently in my Substack, which is really interesting. So it's kind of like a modern day blog, if you will, but I've started to include a lot of writings that way. And people keep encouraging me to write the grief book. But most of the writing that's out there that I've done, I wrote a book called Jersey Girls. Grew up in New Jersey, and I wrote a book called Jersey Girls that came out a few years back. And books on home design, Flea Market Fidos, Flea Market Baby. I co-authored a design book for Nate Berkus.
That's right. That's a cool, that's a whole, I'd love to tap into that stylist side of what you do, because that's a creative outlet on many different levels. Tell us about all of that. That's cool stuff.
Well, I just think, design work to me really tells the story behind the people that live in the home. And so that has always really been part of what I deem memory making. And so, quite often we see people come into design work and have a designer come in, and there's nothing in the home that really tells the story of the people that live there. Sometimes there's not even a framed photograph where we know of the people that actually live there. But I love to help people craft spaces that tell the story of who lives there. And so I think that was really just nothing from training per se, but and not anything that I really grew up with. My mom sold houses, and I got to peek into the lives of others, and I was always sort of fascinated with, like, what's on their bookshelves, what are they reading, who lives here. If we could know who lives here, that was always my thing, like, who lives here, what's their story.
You didn't go through their medicine cabinet, did you?
I did not. I did not.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do.
I also did help. I did help my mom, like, set up for when people would come and look and say, kind of that feeling you get when you're in a place where you feel at home, where you feel on purpose, where she would share lemonade and cookies and invite you into these open houses, and you'd hear someone say, like, I feel comfortable here. I feel at home here. And that to me feels very much the same as showing up for a grief support group. Like, I feel at home here. There's some comfortable. I feel safe. I feel heard. There's something very similar to me. It feels it's hard to explain, but there's such a connection to me that same memory making feeling is kind of the underlying feeling I have about this work. It feels, and a lot of people say to me, "You're so happy. You seem so happy for a grief coach." Like, you'll tell someone that's what you do, and they're like, "But you're so happy." And
they expect you to be morbid and maudlin, right?
Morbid, or wearing black, or crying all the time, or whatever that is.
Sad harp music playing, right?
Yes, and it really can be joyful to help people live with the memory of a loved one and find joy in moving forward. That's really what I think. You can hold grief in one hand and you can hold joy in the other, and they can both be true at the same time.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Do you find that your own relatives and friends and family come to you as well, because you are
some? I think they know I'm the grief girl. Like, they know I'm the grief girl, so they'll most often pass my name along to somebody.
Gigi. There's Gigi.
Grief girl. They'll often pass my name along, and someone's asking if I'm a therapist. I am a grief coach, a certified grief coach, which is different than a therapist. So quite often I will work in tandem with a therapist. Sometimes a therapist won't be grief informed, and so they'll see they're a therapist, and then they'll see me. And I also do some work with therapists to help them in continuing education. So my specialty is only and all in the grief space, all of my trainings. So I'm not a therapist, but I, like you've heard of a life coach. It's very similar. Like, if you would have like a swim coach that would help you with swimming, we come up with what you want to learn, what you want to explore, how you want to feel when you leave our grief workout, if you will. How do you want to feel when you leave? And I help you with the tools so that you can, lift and be strong and feel supported. But we work together in that, like beyond a listener. Like I'll say to you, for this week, this is your homework, and these are the tools that we're going to work on. And we work in tandem to find out what's sticky and how can we get unstuck. How can we feel best in our day to day while also honoring our grief?
You're also a vintage junkie. Tell
I
us
love
about that.
I love flea markets. I think, it may
Yeah,
have
they're
been a
great. You can find some real incredible
yeah,
things there.
it may have been a knee-jerk reaction to feeling like I wanted to hold on to memories. My mom was very much a doer. Like we were always like the gas tank was always on empty. She would say, "Lean forward, girls. We're running on luck." Because we were always like last at the beach, last at the mall, last. She was always like in the doing. And yet there was very little to hold on to when she was gone because she wasn't really a stuff person. So I think knee jerk reaction to that was that I created these instant heirlooms by finding things at flea markets that felt like they had history and that kind of one of a kind feeling that would tell the story of who lived in my home by what I collected. And I love the stories of the pieces. I would love to talk to the dealers about someone's old charm bracelet, somebody's old painting,
So you
someone's
must love
old
Antiques Roadshow on
notebook.
PBS.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot of
that kind of
fun to
stuff.
see when people
Right.
find treasure,
That's
and I'm
great.
definitely not in it for, like, the unknown Picasso. People are like, "Did you ever find anything that was worth a lot?" It's like, what sings to me? What has meaning? What
Could
holds
be a
meaning to
small
me?
trinket. It could be anything,
Could
right?
be anything. Charms, things with the letter B on it. It's been almost anything that I'm drawn to. I find that it's great also for the environment to, you know
Sort of like the recycling, sort of the putting it back into the system of life by taking it. I think talk about here we are talking about disappearing. That's one of the cool things about doing the shows live as opposed to recording them is that anything can happen. So fortunately for me, having worked and still working for years in television, radio, stage, and film, stuff like this happens all the time where things happen from a technical standpoint. More than likely, my assumption is her phone, if she was on the phone, probably ran out of battery. And now she's scrambling for the cord to plug it into the phone, into the outlet, so she can she's still there. You know what I mean? I don't know if she can still hear us too, but she's still there. She's our mystery guest. Maybe we never really saw her. Maybe she was never really here. You know what I mean? Maybe this episode never really happened. Maybe this was a figment of your imagination. I don't think so. uh, but some of the things that she's talking about is she'll be back. Uh, they're all back. Some of the things that she's talking about are so important because it helps us all get through some of the things in life that can be tough, and whether it's loss or confusion about or frustration about something, having people around who support, what it is that you're going through is essential. And I told you that she's a trooper. I told her she'd be back. This whole episode has not been a figment of your imagination. Jim is here. Barry is really here, and there she is.
Not
I, I
not
said, I said, here we are talking about disappearances and loss. And I said, maybe she was never here, and maybe I was never here, and maybe this was just a dream sequence. Maybe this is the
here's
Twilight Zone. I
here's
said, she'll
the
be
real
back.
here's the real behind the scenes of what the heck is going on. So I was just playing for my house today, and I said to Jim, I am not where I usually am with my pretty pink office behind me and beautiful lighting and all of my, Zoom equipment. And I just said, you know what? This is like par for the course. This is like the truth of what is. I was like, in, you can't even make this up,
Did
but
your battery die on your phone?
I can't even tell you what
Because
happened.
the lighting, look at the lighting, it's 10 times better.
Yeah, all of a sudden you were gone, and then I was like, I don't even know how this happens. I've never been on the, tech.
Maybe it's a message from above.
I think, electricity is a big, huge sign. So I don't know if Ellen is here. I have a funny story, but my a video that I posted about my mom on Instagram went viral. It has like over 500,000 views. And I thought, only my mother, who was not alive during that time of social media, could become an internet sensation. and and so I thought, this might be Ellen. This could be Ellen coming and visiting with all of us.
It probably is, yeah, it probably is. What would she be saying? It's time for you to, rest, time for you to have a snack. Did you brush your teeth? I mean,
Oh,
don't forget to moisturize.
no, Jim. Jim. Maybe we didn't talk about me quite enough. A lot of advice. There's a lot of. You showed a couple pictures of me, but maybe this is really the Ellen show. You know.
Right, exactly. There are some, cool photos behind you of people, and there's one of glasses that almost look like the glasses that you're wearing.
You know what? Those glasses were belong to Run DMC. Run of Run DMC. Which way do I have to go? Yeah, right here. Jonathan Mannion is a famous photographer who did a lot of rappers, and these are Run DMC's glasses.
And
And
then
I
you've got the people at the beach.
people at the beach. That's from Palm Beach. Yep, it's a great artist too. Her name is Pookie, which I just loved. And it was a piece that we saw in Palm Beach. She's a local Palm Beach artist. And some are framed. I think also I frame just about everything. I have like little bits of my kids' handwriting that I put in a frame. I think, those are the ephemeral things that I feel that when you decorate with things like that around your own home, um, they just feel, I don't know, like better than anything a decorator could pick up for you, right? They're
Yeah,
personal. They tell the story of you. They invite conversation. And there's just like those little bits, and I just find framing something seems to encapsulate a memory. And
absolutely, yeah. When one of my uncles passed, my aunt gave me, my uncle's I don't smoke, but gave me my uncle's pipe. And it just when I pull that pipe out, it's in a box preserved. When I pull that pipe out, the smell of the wood, the cherry wood, and I just go, and all of a sudden I'm thinking of him in a sweater with the
oh,
pipe on Thanksgiving Day or something, Uncle Sonny, the whole thing. And it just that little just
transport. It can just,
it's fantastic.
yeah, I think like that, those little bits of the handwriting of my kids or a letter that someone's written me that's important. I keep those in my office. Like there's just something about it that's so tactile, so ephemeral and there's something to me about even printing. And I tell this to a lot of people, we're so digital now that sometimes we don't even have photographs of loved ones in frames around our home. And so
Photo albums, yeah.
yeah, so have some of those printed and put them in a frame so that when people come over, they say, this is a beautiful photo, and that incites conversation. I think a lot of times we keep them in our phone and we show them to people when we're in person. But if you ask for photos when somebody's passed, ask the family if you can have a photo. If it's a meaningful aunt, uncle, relative. Once my great aunts came over, they were like these two artsy, fantastic women. And they came over for a Thanksgiving that was at my home. And there was a big silver bowl, and it was filled with black and white photos. And I probably used it as some props for like a photo shoot. And it ended up on top of like a big stack of books in my home. And my aunts are sitting there and they're looking over the photographs. And do you know who this is? And they're having a
Mhm.
conversation, and they thought that it must be my husband's family because they don't recognize anybody that's in any of the photos. They ask me, and I say, "Oh no, those are from the flea market. Isn't that cool? Like it's like a beautiful thing to put in a bowl." And it was, the next thing I knew, like a week later, they had amassed all of these photographs that were of my family. Like, this is so you don't have to have other people's dead relatives in a bowl at your home. These are your relatives. And on the back, they had noted everybody who was in the photos, the year that they were taken, and the stories
Mm,
that the photos told to them. And every birthday moving forward, there would always be some tucked in an envelope. So if you feel like you are the keeper of the memories in your family,
yeah.
somebody else has those, or somebody else has those stories, like, ask for them. Because what happens is, those are the things I do find at flea markets that I feel like I am helping helping continue to keep those memories alive, even though they're not mine all the time. Like, there's something about somebody's old charm bracelet that, like, nobody in the family wanted it, that it ends up on the table at the flea market. Feels like, if that's you, if that's important to you, see if there are things that, not to lay claim to when the person is living, but to just say that that's important to me. Not to have in family infighting about the stuff.
About the stuff, which happens oftentimes. Speaking of the stuff, how good are you at, and what would you say to somebody watching who has trouble parting with the stuff when somebody passes, going into their closet and boxing up and maybe donating or giving to other family members, passing down different things. I've received things over the years from different relatives that I still have. I know for me that one of the hardest things, just in terms of not even if somebody passed, but just in general, if somebody gave me something, and they may still be alive, if somebody gave me something, find it harder to just throw it out. Now, if it's busted and it's totally in a thousand
Yeah.
pieces, that's different. But if it's something that isn't even necessarily topical, relevant, or even usable right now, but it's still there, and you remember that Christmas of 19 whatever when you opened up that gift from Aunt so and so and the smile on their face and you thought about when they went to Macy's to get it for you or something. I have difficulty letting
Hard.
some of that go. I mean, I have stuff from childhood that was crocheted for me, stockings and things, sweaters that don't fit that were crocheted by some relatives, and it's still there.
I always think it's going to be somebody else's job, right, to sort through all of that at some point in your life later. So I feel like I have downsized recently. I have moved many times in my life, and I always use as an opportunity to say, is this important to me? Does this define who I am? Right? And will I use it? Because we shouldn't just have things around that are not useful. And if they hold memories for you, I say there's so many ways of taking a photo, having an illustration made, living with it in maybe a different way. So we can still remember the poncho that grandma made us, but maybe we just keep those items in a photo booth. Maybe there's another way of keeping them that helps you keep that memory, but that you don't wish to live with it anymore, or pass it on to somebody that you think would bring them meaning. Like my children, when we just moved, my children's doll houses were um, passed on. But I know that they're with a neighbor. And, I just think giving it a new life and a new home, or repurposing. So, for example, if you're never going to wear grandma or mother's, fur coat because it's not really your thing, could you make a pillow? Could you make stuffed animals out of a number of sweaters, or a family quilt? Like, is there some other way that you can live with the item that has meaning? So it's a lot of repurposing, reconsidering. Um, some people have received books. Um, they look at the inscription, who it's from, maybe take a photo of the inscription. Sometimes it's that piece of it that really holds such precious memories, the handwriting
Mm.
of a loved one, that. But taking photographs, I know I had a few things that had my mother's handwriting, and I um, used it and I have a tattoo of my mom's
Oh,
signature.
sure. Yeah.
So I think
Beautiful.
there's a way of just living with things that have different meaning. A lot of people have trouble cleaning out closets. I say, what are the 100 items that would tell a story? My friend Christine Lamb does a service around grief like this, where she helps you curate, if you will, the items so that you can make meaning of them, but not make a mess, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
We don't have to live with all of it. We can live and edit, if you will. And I think that's like where my styling background comes in, because I think we can recreate the memory in a way that we can live with it. So that doesn't mean that we always have to, we can frame it and make artwork. We can, like I said, take a photograph. We can make a photo album of all of those items. There's someone whose work I love called the Heirloomist. And they take photographs of items and blow them up into like these big oversized pieces of art. All tickets from every Bruce Springsteen concert that you've ever gone to. All the, so you're making something of the items, not necessarily just keeping them in a box, because a lot of people do that too. They end up in a basement or they end up in an attic, and we're not even living with the items around us.
That's why the climate controlled storage unit business is so big.
Huge,
Do you
huge.
have one?
No, we have a very, very, very small unit, only because we are doing construction. And I said, I'm not packing again. But no, I did the huge, when we moved from Chicago to New York and downsized considerably, I also made my children go through their things and decide what was important to them, because things like that sit in attics and basements for years and years and years. And sometimes, especially the younger generation, I feel like they are more into experiential. Um, than I was. The experiences are more important to them than actually holding on to like their
Physical,
paper with a grade
the
A.
sterling silver and dishes and china cabinet stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that really mean mom to them that they've always I and we've already had those difficult conversations, of my things, of mom's things. What's important to you? I won't get rid of those things if that's important to you. And we've had those conversations. I think, there's also something that I tell clients to.
Hold that
It's
thought.
something called an ethical, something
Welcome
called,
back.
oh, I'm telling you, my mom is really here.
She's saying, she
There's
said, when you said ethical, that's when it froze. And she said, oh, my daughter is definitely ethical. I'm Ellen and she's ethical.
there's something called ethical will. And that's much less about like who gets granted things than how you wish to be remembered. So I say, if you lean into that, ethical will, the things, the way in which you wish to be remembered, um, you start to live into that. It's almost like living backwards, like dinner with the family every night, very important. Um, that might be ethical. That might be something you hope. Um, Creating a charity in your name. The things that you wish to be remembered for. I think that is infinitely more important than the stuff.
Yeah, on so many different levels. Although every once in a while you may have a relative who was a significant collector of
Sure.
certain things with, of great value, and it gets passed down to you, and you relish it because you knew it was something that she loved and that gave her joy, and she had a room filled with thousands of dollars worth of these things, and a few of them have been passed down to you,
Yeah.
like my Aunt Lillian's George Burns.
Oh my goodness.
She was a
But
big, serious doll collector in West Hartford, Connecticut, and had a whole room designated in her home for this significant doll collection of all kinds. So my cousin Barbara said, "Jim, would you like the George Burns?" And I said, working in this field anyway, absolutely. And there he is.
cool. I love that. I
He
think
lives on the Jim Master Show. See?
And I think if it has meaning to you, and you obviously get a kick out of that, I
Yeah,
love that. And it's a way of you remembering her that feels resonant to you, but don't feel obligated or obliged to take something. And
exactly. Thank you,
people
George.
sometimes people take the thing that they think has significant value. The truth is, if it's meaning at all, you're probably not going to want to sell it. So
Right.
really be wise, be considerate of other family members. You know, there's
Exactly.
fighting when there is anything of value to be divided among
They
the
do that. Yeah, people do
family.
that.
And it really creates a lot of tumult in a time when you really need to
Come
hold each other
together.
and get beyond the stuff.
Why do you love this work you do so much, my friend?
I do. I love it because it makes a difference in, um, I think, remembering, as I said, to me, the idea of memory making, that remembering putting ourselves back together is what we also deserve. And we also deserve to honor, um, honor grief. It's as much a part of life as anything else. And so I think bringing death and dying and grief and all of these things that live in silence and create so much suffering is needless. And so I say, let's talk. Let's just bring it out of the shadow and into the day to day vernacular. We're so good about talking about, I think we talk about nonsense so much of the time and gossip. And you and I were talking about social media and likes. And like, this is the real life. Um, these are the real life likes, if you will, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How we remember those that came before us and honor them and preserve our own history and our own stories. That's what's important to me. And that we normalize the idea that all of us, I always think to myself, we were all wearing t-shirts that had the names of all the grief that we have experienced in life. And we walked around like that. We would be so much more empathetic, so much more considerate of each other. When you come in contact with the barista, the person at your grocery, the person walking the dog beside you, just know when you come upon them, it is most definite that it's somewhere along their line in their lives they have experienced a loss, and just meet their heart that way. That's what I think. Like if we could just meet each other in that way and assume that we have all experienced some kind of a hardship. No comparison, right? We don't compare in grief and loss. Everybody's is important. Yours is important because it's yours. But just to meet each other with that compassion and know that we were all carrying something silently like that, to me, is just a better way forward. It is just the humanity, seeing the humanity in one another.
Absolutely. Do you feel that sometimes we're so wrapped up in the day to day, and I were talking about social media and all, but just this fast paced world that sometimes people don't take time to stop and savor and breathe and relish and celebrate?
Yes, and that's really what it's all about. Even the good times, right? We don't really stop to even honor some of the very smallest moments in life. I call them delights, right? Like the very small things that we see day to day. Stopping to smile, ask the person what kind of day they're having, right? Where we just really see each other for a moment. Like we're always, when I get there, we're always like trying to get to the next thing. But where are we going in such a rush? If the pandemic showed us nothing else, it's that slowing down has so much to offer when we just really savor the moment, right? It sounds cliche. It sounds maybe trite to some, but I think when we really, it's humanity. To me, it's the humanity and just seeing the small things come alive. That's what I think it is. Like those little stories about our loved ones. That's that's what has meaning. I loved when you were like talking about the pipe. Like there was so much that came alive for you in that storytelling. And we don't honor that in each other. So I would say if you know that somebody that you work with, somebody that in your building, in your community has lost someone, ask them a story. Show if you don't know any other way to show up when someone has experienced a loss, write them a letter, write them a beautiful letter about your coming in contact with their loved one, right? Maybe there's something about them that they won't know, but you do, and they can cherish that letter. It's just a
Mm,
small act. It's just like the smallest nicety, right? We can all be
yeah.
about um, honoring the loss. I think it's a gift. It's a gift. Be that person.
Be that person, right? We talk a lot about kindness and empathy on this show, and live in an empathetic way, in a kind way, because as we've learned, life is short, life is precious, life is fleeting. There's no extended warranties or written guarantees. Every second counts. And when you wake up and you take that first breath, you're
Hmm.
winning.
Hmm.
You are winning. You are on your way. And it's what you do with it. And it's also how we react to things, too. And I think when we come together and have great conversations like you and I have just done without any scripted questions, no teleprompters, you had no idea what I was going to ask. I had no idea how you were going to answer, and just let it free flow, which I'm very big about. I think you get a richer experience for each other, and in this case, for our lovely viewers watching around the world. What are some of those, as I like to ask, continued blessings and joys in your life that foster this energy and passion for life that you have?
Hmm. I mean, if nothing more, you know, I thought the year between 49 and 50 for me, I kept thinking because of my mom's death at 50, I kept thinking, what if this is all you had? What if this is all you had? And now each year just feels each year more that I live feels like not exactly borrowed time, but really like blessed time, right? What what
It's like bonus or something. Yeah.
Yes, yes, because I think for a lot of us, especially if it's a family member that was ill or sudden loss, you can get a little stuck believing that that might be
That you're next.
yeah,
That's your
your story, and I feel like I've turned that on its head, where I just feel like I need to celebrate because I am living on this magical time, like 7 years past the life that she got to live. And what can I see and what can I know? And, sometimes I even take some of her things. They're a precious few that I have, but sometimes I take her purse with me to theater and be like, how lucky am I that I get to see a show and keep all my tickets in her purse? Just like little things like that, where it's like, come on, mom, we're going to
we're
the
going together.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. It's actually a good luck charm in many
yeah.
ways. This really has been a fantastic show, and of course, our dear friend Wayne as well. How did you guys meet? Is it the stylists
Yeah.
thing?
Yes, years and years ago, I did public relations for something called the Wool Bureau, a little loopy wool mark in your clothes. And Wayne was a famous stylist at the time and continues to be. But back then, it was really like in his heyday. And interestingly, had his offices in this building where I live now. And we never were here at the same time, but I remember coming here back in the day when he had supermodels around him and famous singers and Janet Jackson and like just he became as famous as the people that he styled.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So near and dear to my heart, and we reconnected really around some of his personal loss in the last
yeah.
few years. He lost
Recent.
a partner to
Yeah,
suicide, and that's another um, loss that we don't talk about often. That's usually can be very painful because people don't want to talk about it. Sometimes it's shrouded in silence or shame, and sometimes guilt and not being able to figure out the why when there may never be a why at all. Um,
Right.
but we reconnected over that. And I think that has just been a beautiful gift all of these years later. And it was so kind of him to put us in touch. And I recently um, saw him on his birthday, really a big reconnection. And if you can imagine that something so beautiful can come of reconnecting an old friendship, I would say if you find out about somebody else's loss and you had that connection years ago, even if you didn't know the loved one, it's like so comforting
Yes, it is.
to reach back out to you. And just may not be somebody that's been in your day to day for many, many years, but there is like this old connection that we had living in that time through which, we remember such incredible memories and good times. And there was just something so warm and um, easy about him being able to talk to me about his loss. And that was long before I did this work.
Incredible stuff. It really is. I think we're supposed to meet the people we meet in life for many reasons beyond anything we could possibly even script. And this was really fantastic, Barry. I really appreciate all the time. We chatted just free and flowingly for about an hour and 20 minutes. Like I know, right? And through various room positioning that you were in. So you're a stylist. You wanted to show off different areas of the room,
Areas of art,
different lighting perspectives.
yeah,
Right, exactly,
like
exactly.
a little disco with the lights off and the lights
Right,
on,
exactly. Yeah.
hearing a little.
I hope the show met whatever expectations you had and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you, Barry.
I also just, I don't know. See, now I will have the pipe story forever. Tell me your uncle's name again.
Sonny, Sonny. Actually, a real name Floyd. He never really liked Floyd, so he was always Sonny.
Ah, that's such a great story. And it lives on now for me. And like you said, you're not even, it's not your pipe, but it conjures so, it's not something that you're going to use moving forward, but it conjures so many memories and encapsulates this just beautiful piece of him for you, this imagery. And I love that. I hope you write it down. I hope you take.
One of these days when we have time, maybe if we get together for lunch with Wayne or what have you in the city, I'll tell you the Death Valley story when I drove alone in a rental car in August, in the heat of August, through Death Valley alone after a television shoot I was on, and how life-changing and just getting in touch with self that was. The Death Valley story was another cool one.
That crazy? I've been there. It's kind of crazy driving along
There's something about it.
that
Yeah.
mirage,
There's
that mirage of an
'Cause
experience.
I'm an ocean person. The ocean is my go-to. The ocean is where it's a solace. I love the ocean. I love being near it, just smelling the salt air, swimming, and all that you can do with the ocean. And I respect the ocean too because it's larger than me. It's more powerful than me. It's going to be around long after me. It was here way before me. So I have a respect for the ocean. So what happened as far as the experience with Death Valley, it couldn't be, as I've mentioned, a city, a forest, a botanical garden, an ocean. Couldn't have been any of that. It had to be stripped to our earth. And I'll tell you about that when we hopefully get together soon. And you are welcome back. We're going to keep that proverbial Gym Masters show porch light on for you, Barry. Here is the website, the memorycircle.com. Check it out. She's really a ray of light. And Barry, spread the word about our show. If you know other folks you think would like to pop on and enjoy what we do here, our interactive audience, the viewers are kind of like our studio audience watching from around the world, commenting, expressing. I said if I was going to do anything like this, I wasn't going to do it where it's just a talking head. I like the interactivity of viewers feeling invested and part of it as well, just as much as I am and the guest is. So that's why I
Oh,
don't call these interviews, I call them conversations.
yeah, I'm so honored for everybody that put the name of a loved one and the loss that they've experienced in the chat. My Instagram is always full of that. Say their name, say their name, say their name. If you have a date on the calendar that feels resonant, come share them with me.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. You enjoy, and thanks for again stopping by, Barry. We really appreciate it. It was really a blessing and very inspiring, and you're open and real and authentic, and we really appreciate all the time. And let's stay connected, my friend. Okay.
So good to meet you.
Oh, you as well, Barry. You take care and be well, and thanks for everything.
Good night.
Cheers. Isn't she amazing? Is she a lot of fun? And what a deep conversation, too. That's what's cool about what we do here at JMS. Every show is something different. Every show is something unique. I know oftentimes they say, oh, well, you're supposed to have a niche. You're only supposed to talk about one thing, and that's it. Well, we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about life and all these different guests that come in from all these different backgrounds, all these celebrity friends and folks from television and Hollywood, Broadway, music, stage, film, sports, food, inspiration, you name it, everything in between. They all have something to share, something to say. We always have a good time. None of it is scripted. I'm not reading from a teleprompter. You can tell when there's a host who reads word for word, pre-written script, and needs to have to read all of that in order to have a conversation. We throw out that, out the window, all of that. Maybe once in a while, if there's some particular facts, we might have something, nearby. But generally, this is all free flowing. You guys are involved, you're participating, and it's a richer experience. I think it's really, really cool. And thanks for all the love. Thanks for being with us. And thanks for stopping by. I'm your host, Jim Masters. Thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, we don't say goodbye around here. We say see you later. Ciao, cheers, slancha, moi loop, avida zane. Sayonara, shalom, cheerio, hasta la vista. Take care, be well, and we'll see you on the next episode. We've got so many extraordinary guests who are coming up, and if you've missed any of the episodes, you can check them out on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. If you really were moved, touched, inspired, or just had a good time with us on this episode or any episode, there's a thumbs up icon right next to the episode. Please do give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment in the comments section. Even if you chatted in the chat room, we would love it. It really helps us expand, our growth and what we're doing here and reach more people when you leave a comment in the comments section underneath the episode on the YouTube channel. And also click the thumbs up. We would love that. And don't forget to click the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything when you do that. That's free, but it lets us know you're appreciating what we're doing. It helps us grow when you subscribe. It helps us grow this show, and more people get to see it around the world. Why keep it a secret? Spread the word. Let everybody know about what we're doing here. We really appreciate all of this time, and there's a lot of work and a lot of time that goes in behind the scenes here to put all this together, but thoroughly enjoy doing it for all of you. And let us know how much you enjoy it. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Jim Masters TV. We love having you here. Thanks for being with us. And wherever you're watching around the world, whatever you're going through in life, I hope this episode was something that maybe touched you and inspired you and moved you. And maybe some of the things we talked about are different things that you can call upon when you do experience loss. So when, things go off the rail a little bit and perhaps maybe, um, the day isn't going in the way that you had hoped. It happens for every single one of us. Not every day is perfect. Not every day can be scripted perfectly. And it's not supposed to be that way. Life isn't supposed to be that way. Life is for living. So whatever happens in your life, hopefully whatever we're doing here at JMS, with all the fun, laugh, entertainment, and everything else we do and inspiration, you're having a good time, but you're also learning and growing with us too. And hey, I'm growing too. I'm your host and producer, and I'm getting a lot out of this too, just doing these shows, just showing up, turning all these lights on and sitting in this chair and greeting all of you. I'm having a good time on the train of life like you guys are as well. Thank you very much, Merlin. Yes, she is. We appreciate Barri Leiner Grant for joining us here on the show, and we appreciate all of you. Again, the memorycircle.com is her website. We appreciate her stopping by the Jim Masters show. There she says she likes to do yoga. She sure does. That's some of the balance in her life, in Barry's life. There she is. And look, there is that couch. There's the couch she was sitting on when she was having the conversation with me. That's the couch. There's those pictures. There's the picture with the Run DMC glasses. and almost looks like her glasses, right? And the photo there, the image with the painting there with the ocean and all the others, that's the image of where she actually sat. And that's so cool. We got the image of where she actually sat. And again, some wonderful shots. There she is as a little girl, and her mom, Ellen, who she misses daily, celebrates daily, continues to love. There she is with her daughters as well. And yeah, really fantastic stuff, right? We really enjoyed the time with her, and we enjoyed the time with you. So be well, take care, relax, wherever you're watching around the world. Thanks for watching live and participating in our shows. We try to engage you as much as we can. And if you're watching this later in the archives, well, hope you enjoyed this as well. Stay with us here on our YouTube channel, Gym Masters TV. Many more episodes you can binge watch, and many more episodes that are coming up for you. So if you ever want to know, just check out our YouTube channel and see some of the folks that are coming up. Be well, you take care, and thanks for watching this episode of the Gym Masters Show. We love having you here. Cheers. Be well.